Hi, Jeff Spira here again, and today I'm going to talk about which boat is right for me. I get this email several times a week, so I thought I'd pass it along and discuss the issues with you. It goes something like this. I get an email and I open it up and it says, "Hi Jeff, I'm trying to decide among your boats and I've looked at your Dories and V-bottom Dories and Pangas. I need a boat to go fishing. Which of your designs is best for me? Oh, by the way, where I live here in wherever it is, the water gets choppy, so I need a boat to handle the chop. Which one would you say is best?" And it's signed, a future customer by his name. So, okay, well, here's my answer. I have no idea what you want in a boat. So I have no idea which boat to choose from to offer you. So let's first boil it down into my four most popular types of boats, starting with the Carolina Dory. Next is the Pacific Power Dory. And then again, another one is the V-bottom Dory. And finally, it's the Panga. Those are the four most popular boats that I have. So, if somebody wants a rowing dory or a sailing dory or a flats boat or a drift boat or a Garvey or, something like that, they pretty much know what they want. So I rarely get these kind of questions about those boats. But it's generally someone who wants to build their first boat and is trying to make up their mind. So let's start with the concept of fishing. Which of these boats, these four designs, are better for fishing? Well, what kind of fishing? Are you flats, casting? You're going to stop and bait fish? You can do deep water fishing, offshore trolling, bow fishing? You're going to hunt with a bow and arrow? The truth is, every one of my boats is a good fishing boat. So I don't know which is better for fishing. It depends on what you're looking for. Now let's talk about choppy water. People all over the world call and say, "Here where I live, the water gets choppy." I mean, they say that in Australia and New Zealand and the Philippines. They say, "Whoa, we have choppy water here." Mexico, Pacific Northwest, Southern California, Wyoming, Minnesota, all along the Great Lakes, all along the big rivers. You got to pay attention to those barge wakes, right? People in Oklahoma, Texas, the South Texas coast, all over the Gulf Coast. Anybody in the Caribbean, I live in Puerto Rico. The water gets choppy here, Anywhere in the Southeast U.S., New England, Argentina, Brazil, they all say the water's choppy here. Chile, Panama, Ireland, Scotland, the North Sea, the Mediterranean, all over there, Turkey, South Africa, the Seychelles Islands. I've gotten emails from people in all those places saying, the water here is choppy. I need one of your boats that can handle the chop. The only three places that nobody seems to say that are Alaska, the Canadian Maritimes, like Nova Scotia, Prince Edward Island, and Newfoundland, and Iceland. I sell a lot of boats in all three of those places. And they probably have the choppiest water of anywhere, So I assume those people know, or at least assume that I'm aware it gets choppy there too. So when you tell me and write to me and say, "By the way, it gets choppy here," I think, you must live on planet Earth. Well, here's a secret about all of those four boats that I just mentioned. They all can handle choppy water, all of them. Yes, even the flat-bottom boats. Choppy water does not affect the boat's stability or safety. I shouldn't say stability. Choppy water doesn't affect the safety of the boat riding in choppy water. So the big question is, how do you select the best boat for you? So the question then becomes, what do you want out of the boat? What kinds of activities do you want to use it in? Do you want to go out on stormy days, only nice days? You want to take your kids along, maybe go tubing or have some family fun? Want to run it up on the beach and go camping? Want to cruise slowly and sightsee? Want to operate inexpensively? That's a big deal. Want to blast through rough water to get offshore and then troll for tuna? You want to go long distances? Cross shallow flats? You want it to be stable as you walk back and forth when bow fishing? You want to pull heavy loads over the side like crabbing or catching alligators or pulling up divers? These are the questions that you want to ask yourself about what you want out of your boat. Let's start with static stability. Now, static stability refers to the side-by-side rocking when stopped or trolling, like kids running back and forth or a big dog moving side to side or things like that. My most stable, statically stable boat is the Pacific Power Dory. Its waterline is essentially a rectangle. So it resists motion from moving side to side and rocking. Next up is the Carolina Dory. Now it has a little bit different waterline shape. The waterline shape is basically a football shape. So it's chopped off in the tail end, but it's essentially a football. So it's a bit less statically stable than a Pacific Power Dory. So, but then again, it tends to be narrower, so you tend to keep all the people in closer to the center line. So the V-bottom Dory is next, since it has a V-bottom, and that tends to have less buoyancy out at the edges than it does in the center. So, and the least statically stable is the Panga. So it has the deepest V of all of them, and the waterline is essentially triangular. It's pointed at the bow and broad and flat in the stern. So anyway, that has the most amount of rocking back and forth if you've got a bunch of people moving from one side to the other, that sort of thing. So ask yourself, what level of static stability do you want in your boat? What do you plan to do? Are you going to have one person aboard and always be seated when you operate it, or are you going to be moving side to side? Are you going to be pulling alligators over the side, or what are your needs for static stability in the boat? The next topic you want to talk about is dynamic stability. So what does that mean? Well, it means the ability of the boat to track straight and true through all kinds of water conditions. So has the least bounce when going fast. Do you want to go through rough swells or chop, or are you willing to back down and take your time? Do you want to get air, or you want to relax and be comfortable? My most dynamically stable of these four designs is the Panga, followed second by the V-bottom Dory, and next by the Pacific Power Dory, and finally the Carolina Dory is the least dynamically stable. So the next is the normal speed you want to travel. Are you looking to go fast, or would you rather cruise and have the ability to row the boat at times? Or are you not afraid to burn plenty of gas, or looking for long rides using minimal fuel? Of these, the Carolina Dory takes the least amount of power. Next is the Pacific Power Dory. After that is the V-bottom Dory, and finally the Panga is takes the most amount of power. But my boats are not really speed demons. If you want to go fast, go buy a cigarette boat. Don't build a Dory. It doesn't make sense. The Carolina Dories with their football-shaped waterline displace well. So they travel extremely well at low speeds, which would mean single-digit speeds, 6, 7, 8 miles an hour. But they can get up on a plane if you need, And the most you want to go in one is the low 20s. So if you get up on a nice plane at 18, 20 knots or 20 miles an hour, and you maybe want to fast cruise at 22, 23, 24 miles an hour, then a Carolina Dory is a fine choice for you. So The V-bottom Carolina dories will also displace. Actually, I designed them to be really good trolling boats. You know, that's how we fish here in offshore California. But they'll get up on a plane pretty well, even in choppy water. And these boats are designed to run to mid to high 20s mile an hour range. Yes, they'll get up in the 30s, but mid to high 20s is where they really shine, and that's the appropriate speed for these kind of boats. Next up are the Pacific Power dories. They tend to ride well over a short chop with their upturned bows. They tend to skim over the top of choppy water. And they'll get along going pretty fast because the transoms are wide, so you can hang a lot more power on them. They'll get up on a plane and they'll stay up on a plane and move very fast. So when you slow down and try and displace the hull with them, they kind of tend to be a little bit bargy in their low-speed handling. So this isn't too bad, though, because, you know, in the Pacific Northwest where these boats were developed, many people use them for salmon trolling. Now, salmon trolling uses heavy weights, unlike surface trolling. So that puts more drag to the stern of the boat. So, and you tend to do it slower too. So that helps stabilize the boat when it's displacing. If you're looking for precision low-speed handling, the Pacific Power Dory isn't, you know, you probably want to put strakes or something along the bottom so that it'll improve that level of performance. But in general, it'll run fast just fine without them. And if you you know, are salmon trolling or doing something like that, they'll handle just fine. So. Pacific Power dories are best suited, though, for going fast to where you want to go and then stopping and fishing and camping or doing whatever else you plan to do while you're there. So back in my early commercial fishing days out of San Diego, there were some guys that used them as island raiders to run across the border to the Coronado Islands, which are on the Mexican side of the border, and fish, and then run home when the Mexican patrol boat called the Juarez was a, you know, 5-knot cruiser or something like that would show up, and they could just fire them up and get out of the way. While I was there, one of the Mexican Coast Guard or Department of Fish and Game, whatever, got a much faster boat, though, that you know, they could catch these guys, and a lot of them ended up in a Tijuana jail cell, you know. I bet that cost them some major mordida, you know. Anyway, the Pacific Power dories in the high 20s and low 30s are about all you want to push them, but they're very comfortable at those speeds, and that's a good range for them. So my Pangas are the fastest of the hulls, and cruising in the mid 30s is fine. You know, they take more power to get there, of course, which means they're the least economical to operate. They'll also displace okay and are fine for offshore trolling. You know, in the ocean around here, you troll pretty fast, 7 or 8 knots for tuna and dorado, which you may call mahi-mahi or dolphin fish, and yellowtail. Those are the popular fish that you troll for here, and you do so quite a ways offshore, so you want to get out there relatively quickly because you could be 100 miles offshore or so. So Panga's a great choice there. You can lean on them and get in the 30s speed and in a few hours be out where the albacore run, you know, the tuna runs are out there. So ask yourself, how fast do you want to go in this boat? You know, how much power or speed are you looking for? How much economy? That's a big deal when you're trying to make a decision about which boat to buy. So Next, let's look at the construction time and cost. The easiest of all my boats to build are the Carolina Dories. They're great for first timers. They can be built least expensively in the least number of hours. A lot of first time builders pick a Carolina Dory, and they do so because it meets their needs, and they want a first time boat that they can put together easily enough and is simple enough to get together that they can see some great results from their work. Next up from there is the Pacific Power Dories. Now they're flat bottom, so the frames are only 3 elements. There's a straight bottom cross member, and then 2 upright side members that are all straight pieces of lumber, and they're all standard size lumber. So what separates them from the Carolina Dories, though, is that you have to bend the keelson. The keelson is the main beam that runs down the center line of the boat on the bottom. It's not difficult, but it takes some time and takes some experience. I have a very simple steaming method that is available. I'll send you a report on how to do that. It's available for free download in my insider section as well, if you want to join that. So most builders just use a Spanish windlass, though. They wrap a piece of rope around it and put a stick in there and twist, and it hauls it, it bends it down, and so you can, in the strongback jig, so you can attach it directly to the frames up there. Now the V-bottom Dories and the Pangas are more difficult than the flat bottom boats. They're about the same to build each, so but there's a necessity in those to also pretty severely bend the bottom planking, and it's really a twist up when you get close to the bow. So a lot of times people cut them into narrow panels and then put them on as strips, vertical strips, and then you can later fill them and then glass over them, and then smooth them out before you glass them, and they come out just fine. But they're probably twice the number of hours as a flat bottom boat. So if a Carolina Dory takes you 100 hours, equivalent size V-bottom Dory or Panga might take you 200 hours to build. So something like that. So they're also a bit more expensive to build because there's just more lumber in them. The framing is more complex, and so it just there's more materials involved in it, that sort of thing. So, but none of my designs use complex curved surfaces. All are intended to be covered in plywood, and all use straight elements for the frames. So many first-timers have, with limited even woodworking experience, have built my boats fine on their first try. So ask yourself, how much time and effort are you willing to spend building the boat? This might help you decide which boat might be best for you as well. So if you answer these questions yourself, you'll arrive at a much more satisfactory answer than writing old Jeff and saying, hey, what's the best boat for fishing? And oh, by the way, I live in a place where the water's choppy. I need to handle the chop. So what's my answer? It would be to ask you these same questions that I just did here, so to give you a recommendation for the boat. But if you answer them yourself, you can come up with which boat is best for what you're looking to do too. So, and anyway, well, be sure to like, share, subscribe, ring the bell, and put your comments below about what you think about these topics and what you want in a boat, and I'll be happy to look them over and see if I can answer them and help you out in deciding which boat's good for you. So anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll talk to you again soon.